Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here today to answer your thyroid frequently asked questions. So I did a post yesterday in my Facebook group, my Facebook page, and on Instagram, and I got a lot of responses from it. And it was all about the common symptoms of thyroid, suboptimal thyroid function. And so many of you were like, yeah, got all these symptoms, got most of these symptoms, and there were a lot of questions as well. So I thought the best thing that I could do would be to come on here and go through those questions with you so that I can give you full answers, which isn't easy when you're in the comments. So there was a lot of questions that were repeated. So I've kind of grouped them into categories, if you like. So the first one was, what can be done? I've got all these symptoms. What can be done to reverse those symptoms? And to answer that question, you really need to understand why you've got those symptoms in the first place. So yeah, maybe your thyroid isn't working properly. You might not know whether that's true or not, because as I mentioned, the testing isn't great. The testing that you get from your doctor is pretty basic and it misses a lot of people with thyroid issues. So to be able to properly address thyroid issues, we really need to dig down into what is causing the issue in the first place. So that's what we do with our clients, is start investigating, okay, is this deficiencies? Is this inflammation? Is it stress? Is it underlying infections? Because there's issues in the gut that can be linked to the thyroid underfunctioning. There can be issues with your liver function, not necessarily that you've got an unhealthy liver. And again, that might be showing as a healthy liver on a blood test, but there can be issues where you're not converting your hormones properly within the liver and the gut. So there's so many areas where the thyroid can become dysfunctional that there is no one answer to that question of how to reverse those symptoms. But there are some basic things that you can do, which are things like make sure you get plenty of sleep, prioritize managing your stress and having some downtime, make sure that you're fueling your body properly. Undereating is one of the worst things for your thyroid, and cutting down your carbohydrates too low is one of the worst things. And often to lose weight, you're told, well, cut your calories, cut your carbs, but actually it can make your thyroid function worse. So we don't want massive calorie deficits and extreme diets. That isn't going to help your thyroid. So more things to think about are making sure that you're well hydrated, you're getting plenty of protein as well. So then the sorts of things that I would start with, you'll have, if you start researching, you'll read things about how you shouldn't have too many cruciferous vegetables or the brassicas, and things like not overdoing soy because they can interact with your thyroid. What the research actually shows is that that's very rare. It's very unlikely to cause problems. You'd have to be in huge amounts of them. And really, it only seems to be a problem for those who are very deficient in iodine. So don't worry about overcomplicating things by trying to avoid those groups of foods as well. Another question that we had was, I have thyroid antibodies, but the doctors won't do anything. And the reason why they won't do anything is because they don't really have any tools in their toolbox to be able to address it. The main approach for addressing the thyroid antibodies is usually giving T4, levothyroxine, which is the main thyroid hormone. And that can help to suppress the antibody levels. However, what it doesn't do is address the underlying cause of those elevated antibody levels. So there's a lot of the things that I mentioned earlier, so things like issues with the gut, underlying infections, stress, these are all things that can trigger off this autoimmune response when you have these elevated antibody levels. So they're the sorts of things that you would be wanting to think about and ideally investigate further. That's the sort of thing that we would be doing if you had thyroid antibodies. So another question was, you've got the symptoms, but you've had a normal blood test result. So what now? Which is a very good question. So one of the things that I talk about a lot is how the testing is very basic. So you might go to your doctors and they will probably test your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. If you're lucky, they may also test your T4, which is your main thyroid hormone. However, there are other thyroid hormones. There's the T3, which occasionally gets tested if you get referred to a consultant. And there's also the thyroid antibodies. So they're the first things to think about because they could be out of balance. So if you've got all the symptoms, then you may be able to push your doctor to get a referral. And then that might help you to understand, is it the T3? Is it the antibodies? However, if it is or if it isn't, you're probably not going to get a huge amount of help with that because they don't have many tools in their toolbox to address it. So all you may get is an increase in thyroxine medication, or maybe an introductory dose of thyroxine medication, but that isn't really what you need. What you need is your body needs support with converting the T4 to the T3 hormone and to address whatever's causing the increase in the antibody levels, which is not a lack of T4 hormone. So that's the issue. That's the issue with, if you do manage to get a consultant to do further testing, you still don't really get very much further with addressing the issues, which is ultimately what you want. So I'm going to pull this blind down because it's making my camera go dark. So where did I get up to? Yeah, so what now? What do you do if you've got normal blood test results? So that's what I'd say is go ahead and try and get more detailed tests done. Again, this is something that we do with our clients. And then that will give you a better understanding of what's going on. So I've answered that one, and then I've pretty much answered that one. Another question that we had was about if you don't have a thyroid, so if you've had a thyroidectomy where you've had either part or all of your thyroid removed. So this is still something where the management through conventional medicine is poor, I have to say. So what usually happens when you have your thyroid removed is that you'll be put onto thyroid medication, thyroxine, just like if you had underactive thyroid. Unfortunately, they don't also give you the T3. And so if you've had your thyroid removed, often you just feel awful because you've got the T4, but you haven't had, again, the underlying issue hasn't really been addressed. So when you're taking that T4 hormone or that medication, your body has to convert it to be able to utilize it. And that means that your liver needs to be converting it and your gut needs to be converting it. So we'd be focusing on your liver function and also the gut function as well, the balance of bacteria, inflammation in the gut, and that type of thing, to ensure that your body's able to convert that hormone as efficiently as possible. In an ideal world, getting the T3 medication would be ideal. However, they don't offer that on the NHS. So going private is sometimes the best way to go in that respect, or that would be kind of the best option. And then it might be that additional benefits come from, looking for more alternative support. And then another question we had was, I have had my T3 tested and that's optimal. So what now? So again, if you haven't already, then you'd want to have your antibody levels checked. And if you can, I would also get your reverse T3 checked. So your T3 is the most active thyroid hormone. It supercharges your cells and your metabolism and makes everything work faster. Reverse T3 is like putting on the brakes. It slows everything down. It's a different form of that hormone. And some people have this imbalance where they're making the thyroid hormone, they're making the T3, that's all working properly, but that T3 then is getting converted into the reverse T3, which puts the brake on and mimics underactive thyroid. So that could be a problem. And again, getting your reverse T3 checked would be ideal to see, is that happening? And if you do get it checked and everything is all still normal, then the likelihood is that it's something else, non-thyroid related, something other than thyroid issues that are causing these symptoms, because ultimately the symptoms are quite non-specific. They can be a symptom of something else, like an underlying infection, like a chronic fatigue type thing. It is very common to experience many of these symptoms when you're menopausal, perimenopausal, when you're under a lot of stress, or your adrenal glands. I was going to say adrenal fatigue, but the proper name for it really is called HPA axis dysfunction, which is essentially where your brain isn't communicating with your adrenal glands very efficiently. So essentially prolonged stress can cause all sorts of imbalances and miscommunications between your hormones. So if it's not your thyroid, in terms of you've had everything checked and there's nothing, absolutely nothing is coming up, then it's either that it's something else, or it's that you're being told that your blood test results are normal, but actually, yeah, they're normal, but they're not optimal. And so we want to make sure that, you're not just in that normal reference range. You need to be well into that reference range to ensure that you're functioning optimally. And that's often a problem that we see, that the reference ranges are too wide. And a lot of people who do have imbalances, they're just told that they're normal because they're just about in that normal range. And there is a very big difference between being normal and being optimal, when it comes to the thyroid, but also to many other areas like blood sugars and sex hormones and various other things. So hopefully this has been helpful and it's answered lots of your questions that you've had. If you've got any more questions about thyroid or anything really, then just let me know. Pop your questions in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. And if we get loads of questions, I'll come back and do another video. So I hope this has been helpful. If it has, make sure you give us a like, as this helps Facebook to see that this is good stuff and that you're enjoying it, and it shows it to more people. Have a good rest of your day and I'll be back soon. Bye.